Christopher Deep Henderson, and I'm a songwriter-producer out of the States, Atlanta, GA. Originally, I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I started my production career in Virginia, Hampton, Virginia, and I moved to Atlanta about 11 years ago. Detroit is Motown, and you know, it was a very talented town. Like, just, there were always talent shows going on. There are so many like talented people in my school, and it wasn't even a school for the performing arts or music school, but just the people who happened to be in public high school were just very good singers. And so, you know, the talent shows were just, you know, very stiff competition. I started working with a lot of the singers that I met, and so when I moved to Virginia and started actually getting a hold of production equipment, I had very high standards on the singers I wanted to work with, being from Detroit. What made me work in music, it was something that I didn't even realize I wanted to do. It was always a hobby of mine, but I didn't really take it seriously through high school or middle school. My family wasn't very musical, so it wasn't like it was pushed. My family was more of the high education type of family, so academics was always pushed. And so when I got to college, Hampton University in Virginia, they actually had a working recording studio and classes that you could take in audio engineering or in recording. I took those as an elective, and it exposed me to the actual recording studio for the first time. And so there, I actually worked my hobby and kind of found my passion. You know, I was encouraged to keep going. And then to really put a spark to it, the first song that I completed while, you know, doing projects in that class, Teddy Riley got a chance to hear, and he liked it enough to invite me to a studio based on that song. Since he was based in Virginia Beach, he had celebrity basketball games at Hampton University. And in one of those basketball games, very early in my going there, he was actually hosting one of the basketball games, and I had a chance to have my song played during the game. And a friend of mine actually caught Teddy bobbing his head and like looking up with the stink face, like, what's that? And so that's when my friend moved in and said, oh yeah, you know, me and my man produce, yeah. You know, he didn't actually produce anything on it, but he kind of saw the opportunity and he got in also. So he was like, yeah, Teddy Riley wants us to come to the studio. So we went to the studio. At that time, I only had that one song, and before the meeting, I only had a chance to do a remix to that song because I didn't have unlimited studio access. And he liked it so much, he just kept inviting me back and kept inviting me to work on things. And in that time, I did do a remix for Blackstreet. I decided that it was going to be my job, but when I told my mom, she definitely wanted me to graduate first. So I didn't go at it full throttle. Basically, I just kept making progress as much as I could, doing it on the side while I'm studying, and then when spring break or winter break or summer break came up, I would take that chance to go to Atlanta to play stuff for record labels, cold call, and see if I can get an A&R to take a meeting, take trips to New York, see if I can get A&Rs to take meetings and hear the stuff that I was doing. Part of the reason why I gave it up early well, I didn't give it up, but why I gave it a back seat to finish college was that I figured when I got back into it, it might be easy. And that's when I found out that people can like your records a lot, but it's another story as far as when they're actually going to hire you to produce their professional record for a real record label. My first song that actually ended up being a hit was two friends of mine from middle school and elementary school were actually getting married, and I had hooked them up in high school in 10th grade. So when they called me and gave me the announcement, I felt particularly attached to it. And so I asked if I could write them a wedding song. So despite, as long as I've been trying to get songs to different record labels, this was done completely just not to send anywhere. This was just a gift to them for their wedding song. It was custom made. You know, I called them and got the lyrics basically from their story. And when I was making my regular rounds a month later to record labels trying to get songs placed, someone asked me for up-tempo tracks for Case. And I told him, well, I have some good slow songs. He was like, no, only up-tempos. I was like, okay, I'm a pretty good writer. Like, no, just the instrumentals, just the tracks. And so I delivered what they wanted, gave them 5 instrumentals, but a friend of mine convinced me to go ahead and put the wedding song on there. And I was scared to do it because that's actually exactly what they didn't ask for. But he said, well, you gave them what they wanted, just stick it on the back and say, I just want your opinion on it. And so I sent the wedding song with the rest of the tracks, and they actually called me back in love with the wedding song. And so that became Case's first single. Case on Def Jam in '99, Beyonce was in the video. It was a song called Happily Ever After. And it was a #1 radio record. It was #3 on Billboard R&B. It was one of the top 10 of that year, actually, and #15 on the Billboard pop charts. First, I had to gauge what exactly they didn't know and what they felt like they needed to know. And so I tried to be reactive to that and use that to build on what to tell them because, I've been in the business over 18 years now, and so, there's a lot to talk about in that span of time. So I try to start by asking first, so that I can figure out where to guide my stories, which stories are relevant, and where to guide my conversation. So what it seemed like they wanted to know about was just the creative process from the urban recording standpoint. Because, each genre has its different techniques. And so being on both sides of the equation as a writer and a producer, I can make a very informed discussion with them on this is how a track is started. This is what I look for in a track. These are the elements that I start from 0 to 10. But then I could also continue this discussion and say, all right, now that the track is workable, not finished because we only had so much time, but when the track is workable, this is when the songwriter ideas start budding. And this is how we collaborate and write song ideas. We go on the mic and first we might have a concept and just the basic technique of almost microphone first writing. And when I say microphone first writing, I mean you might write down certain phrases and certain rhyme words, but instead of writing the whole poem out before you go and start the song, you're actually almost forming it in the microphone, forming the words, and therefore certain things go into your song right away, like breath control and the pocket from which to work your verbal cadences. And so it's a different technique, and I hope they learned more about it today. The way I produce is, since I'm a songwriter and a producer, I feel like I should just come in and do whatever's necessary for the good of the record. So I'm not really bringing an ego in, like I gotta do this much, or I'm not doing mental calculations on how much of a song I did versus how much of a song someone else did. It's really more about, am I needed more on this particular collaboration as a writer, or am I needed more in the track position? And when I deliver tracks and another writer wants to take the lead, I don't really step on his toes too much. And vice versa, when I'm writing to someone's track, I don't really step on their toes too much, and so I just try to deliver the best record. But I will give suggestions, like if someone else started the track, I'll say, oh, it could go to a bridge right here, or I can make informed suggestions to whoever the collaborator is, from whatever position he's sitting in. So sometimes I dream up a whole idea and I hear a completed song in my head. And so my production process becomes hunting down those sounds that are already in my imagination. And sometimes it's just about hearing a started idea and figuring out what's the best way to make this come out of the speakers in the most impactful way possible. And so that's what production is for me. Everybody has to really do a good self-assessment and learn what their strengths and their weaknesses are, and basically delegate authority to team members to cover up the weaknesses or accentuate the strengths. And the only way that they're going to partner up correctly and effectively is if they have a good assessment of themselves to know what they actually need to make a better song, or to market themselves better, or to sing better, or write better. You know, everybody has, even when somebody can do it all, they can't do it all at the same time. You know what I mean? And so you always need to find out, like, your path into the music business is really whatever gets you to great songs first. And so whatever you're bringing to that equation, you know, that's what you start with. And whatever you don't have in that equation, that's what you're seeking out to get into the music business successfully.